Okay, Stephen King's It. I have to preface this with this one basic thing. I do not like the vast majority of Stephen King's work. I do think he's relatively overrated when it comes to what he's actually done. Some of his earlier work, brilliant. Some of his more recent work, not so much. So, It is actually a two-part movie that was initially on regular everyday TV in the 1990s. Now, for those of you who know anything about It, you pretty much always know one thing. That is Tim Curry and his role as Pennywise. Okay, so the first part of this movie, there's lots of going back and forth in time. So you have a child named Georgie, who's out essentially flying. He's got a small boat, goes into the sewer. That's then where we come face to face with our first time with Pennywise, the demon in the body of a clown, who of course ends up essentially kidnapping and killing Georgie. He also begins to haunt and terrorize some of the other children in the area. So there's lots of weird, like, coming of age, sort of like a Goonies or a Stand By Me, if they end up going into a sewer and fighting a demonic clown who kills people and has the ability to make certain people go insane. So the first one, of course, it is the children facing off against Pennywise. And then, as they get older, this is part two. Part two is essentially them as adults, 30 years later, going back to finish the job off of Pennywise. Now, the weird thing is, from a horror movie standpoint, I could see if I saw this when I would have been 10, this would probably been ridiculously horrifying. Watching it now, a lot of the scares, they seem a lot more kind of like, well, what the sort of scares, you know, when they're actually having a dinner and all of their fortune cookies become some sort of weird creatures. It's done really well. I'm thinking about this movie is roughly 21 years old. It actually holds up fairly well, except for some of the CGI effects, but that's because of just the age of the movie. All I'd safely say, you know, for the 3 hours of watching this, it's actually a really, really solid movie. The only depressing part was one of the child actors is dead and John Ritter is dead. So when you're watching people in a movie who are dead, it kind of just go, wow, that's really sad and depressing. And of course, you also get to see a very young Seth Green playing kind of a nerdy kid. He grows up to be kind of a nerdy kid. So of course when they all grow up, most of their lives haven't quite hit a level of success that you would expect them to do for being really close friends. And when they come back, they seem to forget what happened, why they're there, and then every now and then they have these just moments where it clicks why they're there, what happened 30 years ago, and then every 30 years something has happened to this town, and it can all attribute back to the demonic possession of Pennywise. And of course they have their giant climactic battle at the end for it. You know, I can really say, if you're afraid of clowns and or spiders, this is probably an absolutely horrifying movie for you. I know people who are afraid of clowns. And if you mention balloons, you know, like from the movie It, they kind of shudder. So it definitely does a very good job making a clown a horrific sort of a villain. And by far, probably one of Tim Curry's absolute best performances I've ever seen. It's like this and him playing the demon in Legend. So if you want to see a movie that's got coming of age, you know, sort of like 90s feel to it, with bits and pieces of horror thrown into it, and lots of blood, I was amazed it's actually on like regular TV. It's just like a made-for-TV movie. So it's actually very good. Don't go in there thinking that you're going to be like, you know, jumping out of your seat all the time. It's more of that slow building tension, suspense. And by far has probably one of the most interesting and creative sort of villains that I've seen in a movie in a really long time. And Pennywise, the demon in the body of a clown.